Hey Wiebke, it's nice to see you again. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to celebrate our 3-year mentorship anniversary with everybody to see here on the AgriAlly podcast.
Second time around, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey for our mentorship relationship as well as for the AgriAlly initiative and podcast. You are the first guest I ever had on the podcast and the most fruitful relationship and journey in agriculture. It's so beautiful, and I'm super proud of it. I'm happy you're here. To give a little bit of a background for everybody to hear, it's been a 3-year journey since we met through the Women in Food and Agriculture Mentorship by LTech. It's been 3 years of learning, 3 years of collaborating and co-creating, becoming friends, and
Yes.
maintaining this consistency that has been super impactful in my work, especially since I've pivoted toward being an active contributor to the regenerative agriculture space, which is something that you're very familiar with. And it's an amazing opportunity now to use the platform that AgriAlly has created to outline the progress that we've made together to make this a two-way conversation, as in we'll both answer and ask questions. And I'd love to hear how your progress has been through this year, as well as through the past 3 years since we began our mentorship. Again, I'm super proud, and I can't wait to see what adventure goes forward.
Thank you so much, Thea. I'm so happy to be back on your podcast. Also seeing that you also stayed consistent with the podcast and you brought out so many episodes, even though I know how much work it is. So I'm very impressed by this. Yeah, it's been 3 years. I just said like in the preparation how I still remember sitting in a cafe in Germany, like being nervous who would like get on the camera when we connected for the first time on the Women in Food and Agriculture Mentorship Program. And I honestly, if you would have asked me back then if we're still here in 3 years, I would have said no, probably not. Like probably we'll do some sessions and then maybe the person will be like so busy with work and like with achievements, like why should she sustain a mentorship for this long? But I think it was a good match, and I'm always impressed by your dedication to this mentorship. And so since then it has been motivating. And yeah, I think you asked about the evolution in 3 years. I think a lot of things have happened, that's for sure. I see you a bit as like a guardian angel from afar, because what people might not know is that we never met in person. We always tried. We're like laying out events in food and ag that are happening over the year, and we're like, oh, this could be a meeting. This could be. We never made it. I think we will make it at some point.
I feel like 2026 is going to be our year.
Yes. Yeah. Gonna move around a bit more so on my side. So. So yeah, there's this like figure always like looking out for me and like rooting for me, which is so important. Who like you with like huge professional experience, who can always like put things into context. And I think it's also something you talked about, like a huge aspect of it is accountability. That when I talk about something in our sessions, then you kind of also want to show progress in the next time. So you want to work on it, and you want to like if you're not sure about a situation or you complain about something, then it's a reason to like realize that maybe I myself am not comfortable with the situation, and then it's also motivation to change something until the next time that we see each other. So it's always like a little move forward, and a check-in with the sessions, with the mentoring sessions, to see, okay, what's the progress, or what's the
Yeah.
progress have been. I don't know if it feels the same for you, or if there are the aspects that are important for you.
Absolutely. It's been from the first session as we actually agreed, and it was amazing to meet somebody who was so dedicated. And of course, I'm proud of our consistency, though of course it's always a surprise when I encounter somebody like you who constantly came to me with aspects that you wanted to improve, you wanted to focus on. I remember from our first sessions, which of course we both had them from different locations, from a different cafe, from different homes or even countries. Uh, I remember this and how we always made time and made the space for this to happen, which is something that I've been very, very proud of. And I encourage in all my conversations, and I give our relationship as an example of this consistency and dedication because we always brought our intentional efforts in collaboration and bringing topics which we would like surgically open up and approach from different perspectives. And I really love the fact that we always flip the table and we'd always put each other in each other's shoes. And it's one of the most invaluable aspects of a mentorship relationship that became actually a mentor relationship, basically, because we were both learning from each other. And this is one of the most beautiful things I think has happened, especially in our relationship. I was reflecting the other day on how it all started, especially how important the women in food and agriculture community was as a catalyst for our own collaboration, and the fact that we got the ball and we ran with it, as in we made it our personalized collaboration. And I'm happy to have seen that as we were beginning in the relationship of mentor-mentee, you were bringing these situations and these curiosities in the discussion. I was providing you with a perspective, and we were like sparring partners eventually, and how we began to easily, step by step, bring to the table, both of us, situations that we wanted to exchange perspectives or to pitch practice or actually just speak on text, on content, on approaches with people and in the business environment. I think this is incredibly amazing, and it's just the most important pillar of the AgriAlly initiative and podcast for women and youth in nature STEM, that we make this aware to more and more people, more and more women and youth, that they have this kind of information, these relationships available, and all they need to do is just put it out there and ask to be connected to somebody who can support them like this. The support that we have between the two of us, I think it's irreplaceable.
I wanted to say that, like, I think one of the huge impact this relationship had was, like, I think last year was, your motto was like ripples of impact. I remember when we talked about objectives of the year. And I think a huge impact was that this relationship inspired me even to take on, like, I don't know if I call it a mentorship, but like a little responsibility of a former intern of mine who's now studying at Wageningen University. And we also installed these like regular meetups as like friends, supporters, where we're like talking about life updates and like asking each other for advice or training on skills or on things that we want to work on. So I think that's one of the most amazing things, when you can like inspire people and it's like going on like this. And even like friends of mine have told me, like, hearing about the mentorship program, they were like, oh, it's true, like it's a, like, I should look for a mentor as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that, and I'm so proud to hear you say that. Just the sheer thought of you taking this forward and taking the energy, the concept, the sheer vantage point of showing somebody your perspective on something that they're concerned about or they want to improve. And it's the most amazing things in life, that knowing somebody else is benefiting from what you taught somebody. So it's just wow, I love it. It's I think it's the foundation of humanity, like
Yeah,
knowing
yeah, and like
of
it
legacy.
builds connection, and
Yes.
like it gives a lot of like satisfaction and like good feelings about just being connected and helping other people, and at the same time also learning yourself. Like it's a two-way, it's always a two-way relationship.
It is. And it's also sustained this way when I saw that we were both really intentional at what we were bringing and we were requesting from our calls. I love the fact that we were very consistent in scheduling and we made this happen intentionally, which is something I will always emphasize, that when you want to do something, you have to act on it. I am always a fan of that. There's a phrase that somebody on Instagram mentioned about ADHD. Don't put it down, put it away. At the same time, it's like whenever I get the spark of I want to have a conversation with somebody, I just act on it and I set a conversation with that person and follow through, which is one of the most important things that I feel
Yes,
has contributed to our relationship, and that we've scheduled it every time. At the end of every call, we've scheduled the next talk and we
yes,
follow through. And I love that.
yes,
Some things for anyone listening, I want to emphasize how clarity and accountability, as you mentioned earlier, and consistency, and also courage has contributed to our conversation, because we came here in this in our conversations as professionals, and we became friends in the meantime, and we have this structured mentoring that became sort of a professional calibration with a personal calibration as well. And how we showed up every day, every month actually, with what we wanted to shed light on, I think it's one of the aspects that contributed to us being here today after 3 years since 2022. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on the new chapter that begins for Regeneration regarding the Mirova investment, which I'd love for you to share more about, and how your journey has led you there and how it's been for you.
yes. It was a like it's something I'm quite proud of, and it's been a journey. I mean, maybe some other people already went through some fundraising. I know that you know it, that it's a long process, and
Yeah.
um, they really looked into the details, into the technical details of carbon crediting during the technical due diligence, which is my like what I'm working on. So there were a lot of things to deliver, and but on the other hand, it's very good to have investors on board who know your topic and who know what they are talking about. So while it was challenging, it was also very valuable to get their input. And already in the process, it helped us to improve the project and to have more clarity on where we're going. And now they decided to invest 10 million euros to scale the project over the next 20 years and generate climate benefits at 10.4 million tons
Wow.
on carbon equivalents. So that's, yeah, like the numbers are always like, it's like big numbers. It's like the program gonna scale to 500,000 hectares in France and Belgium.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's the plan. Now the plan is fixed. Now we have to execute the plan. So there's a lot of work coming up, a lot of challenges ahead. I can already see them, and I know that there are even more of them that I cannot even see yet. But I'm excited. I'm very excited. Like it feels like with the company, like we're alone in an ocean and like heading into a direction, and now we have wind who's like carrying
Interesting.
us into
Yeah.
the direction and like supporting us on the journey. So that feels very good to not be on your own anymore, but to have like someone very strong by your side who can also who doesn't only support financially, but he also supports in with like advice and giving directions.
Absolutely. It's one of the aspects that I've noticed makes the biggest difference. And you made the parallel with how we're fundraising at Proon-Tech. Having indeed somebody who knows the industry and the subject matter that you're operating with, the market, and the specialists, the experts like yourself on the voluntary carbon markets and on soil organic carbon, it's absolutely essential to have somebody who knows what you're talking about. It makes the world of a difference. That's why one of the things that I realized is that it's extremely important to qualify to the bone the people that you want to work with. Because now startups work with, they want to have investments and they're looking for money, and everybody's looking for investment or fundraising. And they, I've heard stories about term sheets and things, relationships like this taking a wrong turn. And mostly it was because of the fact that the investors, the fund, was lacking specialists to support them with go-to-market strategies, product market fit, and the technical part, the technical validation, I think is one of the most important aspects when you're doing the due diligence process for a startup and for a project like yours. And I bet it was in terms of the due diligence process. I would love for you to walk me a bit more through it and how you structured everything and how it was for you, and perhaps maybe even how some of our sessions supported you.
Oh, that's a very good question. I think the sessions and like our discussions, it's mostly about like managing the workload and managing the stress also and the tension that's building up. Um, that's very helpful with that, like being able to just uh, decompress, like talk about all the deliveries and like hearing from someone that like it's normal in a process like this before the investment comes to have like um yeah to have like a high workload and to go all in.
I'm mostly interested in that part because I know from the past, from experience, through the due diligence process and working with auditors, especially because I've worked with auditors, financial
Yes.
internal auditors, all sorts of auditors, and that is definitely something that requires a lot of self-awareness and knowing,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
the matter.
It's interesting. I kind of like it because it's very clear, like the due diligence mindset or the auditing mindsets. It's like a very like it's giving very clear roadmaps where you have findings, like they're gonna discover something in the documents that maybe you weren't even aware of, like a little mistake or a little like improvement or things where documentation wasn't clear or not updated. So you get this list of findings and then you go through it and you update all the documents, and it forces you to continuously improve your documentation. And with the carbon credits, it's a lot about providing clarity and transparency and being consistent in the things you're saying. Like you can't just say, okay, this is permanent carbon credit without explaining how you guarantee permanence, or what mechanisms you put in place so that the carbon credit remains valid over time. Because in agriculture, there's a big risk of permanence, because soil carbon, once it's stored in the soil, it can be released. So you have to implement securities to make sure that farmers continuously implement the good practices, even long after you and your project will be gone, actually.
I
So
love
it's
that.
about implementing a durable system on the farms. And
can you share more about like an example of permanence? We were talking at one of our sessions about orchards, for example. Can you connect these two and how relevant they are, and how, like, using the example of an orchard, the concept of permanence and additionality and offsetting and insetting, if you can share these?
yes, 4 keywords
Yeah.
in the carbon market. I see that our previous sessions are giving some fruits,
Very proud.
literally. So let's take the case of the orchards, which is interesting because you're working with Proon-Tech on orchards. It's not my specialty. We're more looking on cropland and grassland, but it's always interesting to look into like different economic systems.
Yeah, I'm always
So
challenged.
you do have the condition of additionality, which means by definition that the carbon benefit is due to the carbon payment and not due to any other changes or regulation. Because the buyer of the carbon credit, of course, wants to make sure that the investment they did in the carbon credit had an actual climate impact, and that there's not someone just picking up some additional money on the way for something they're already doing anyway.
I see.
So in an orchard, that could be very typically someone who has like a conventional orchard. Maybe they're pruning and they're exporting the residues from the pruning, and they just leave them rot somewhere, or they use them for energy, or they don't know what to do with it. And then you could implement a carbon project where in fact you turn the residues that you collected during the pruning activity, and you give the farmer some money so he can transform the residues into wood chips that you could leave on the soil, and that give the carbon gradually towards the soil and add as a fertilization. But it has to be an idea that the farmer only has due to the project, or that he or she wasn't able to implement without the project because they were lacking some technology or they were lacking some knowledge. So that's the additionality. And then with the permanence, it means that, of course, once the carbon would be transported to the soil, it should also stay there. So you would have to give some incentives to the farmer to always continue these good practices. And one argument would already, if they're like if you would need a certain machinery, and the farmer made an investment in this machinery to transform the residues to the wood chips and to the organic fertilizer, then you could argue that the farmer doesn't have any motivation to change the technology. So he or she would always keep on with like adding the residues to the soil. Do you see any
Open-ended
like
question.
links to the technology that you're currently working on?
Absolutely. With Proon-Tech, we're using pruning residues, as you said, byproducts and biomass to boost the soil organic carbon. And it's something that has sparked a lot of interesting conversations, especially since last week from the Climate Change Summit. People have come to me saying that they are interested in the biomass collection and turning that biomass into biochar, and also converting that to carbon credits. And that's exactly what we do. And the level of our technology and the objective, the goal of our technology is exactly that. It's right now we're using the software to make the correct pruning operations, the cuts. And while you're doing that, like a farmer could basically point the phone at their tree, and the app actually, it calculates and analyzes the branch width and length, and it estimates the amount of biomass that is resulted with every cut. Basically, which with each tree that you prune, you will have the estimation for the biomass, and this will go into the flow of the process to be turned into biochar and eventually turn into carbon credits, which is, I think, a great connection that we have, that where you can support with this, especially given
Yes.
most recent advances with regeneration. It's
Yeah, like you really tap into one of the big challenges in carbon crediting, which is the data collection. And biomass is one of the variables, one of the data points that is very important for carbon storage in soil, or for carbon in general, because like biomass, that's where the carbon is in. So in order to estimate your carbon, you always need to estimate your biomass. It's crucial and it's difficult. So people are always happy if they find a good solution to accurately estimate biomass.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to hear you say that. I can attest to this because there have been people literally coming to me and smiling and saying that they are extremely happy to finally see an organization in Romania and the side of the European Union to talk about using biomass in this. We were founded in 2024, and even though the startup itself is quite new, myself and my co-founder Stefan were using our compounded experiences, like 10 plus years, and we're trying to de-risk this process for landowners, for orchards, and eventually for foresters as well. This is because the whole process aims to monetize the orchard byproduct and the forest byproduct that would otherwise be burned. We would use this and would transform it intentionally into biochar through this methodology and technology that we're developing. So it's providing an opportunity for farmers to actually do something with the products that they would otherwise burn. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that. One of the things I'm most curious, and I've bugged a lot of people with this, that have to do with financing and this whole aspect of climate finance. And I know that you are so ingrained in this whole ecosystem. How are you seeing the awareness of farmers and the other layers of this ecosystem has been in the past year, especially when it comes to the sheer financial aspect that they can gain out of this?
It's increasing, for sure. I think there's some clear signs that the market is evolving. And also coming back to your previous question, I know that we didn't talk about the inset and the offset yet, but it's kind of linked. So the inset is when you have value chain actions, so companies who are actually in the agri-food area, and who have farmers as their direct suppliers. We talk about inset. If these companies trying to reduce their scope 3 emissions, for example. So scope 3 is everything that's not happening in terms of emissions directly at the company, but it's happening before or after the production. on the production line. And offsetting is when the company buys a climate benefit, buys a carbon credit that was generated outside its value chain, outside its supply chain, without any link to the company's operation. So that would typically be a company like Microsoft buying soil organic carbon credit from farming. Like Microsoft is not linked to farming, but they can still invest in an offset and use this investment in their own climate accounting. So especially in the interaction of these two mechanisms, the inset and the offset, there's some movement. There's the European Union talking about European carbon farming framework. So they want to establish a framework that allows to emit carbon credits for farms. And there is a yearly summit on it, and the Commission is working on it, but it's not yet outlined. We're actively, as ReGeneration, we're actively participating in this process. We're trying to contribute as much as possible to have like a rigorous framework on the European level. And the inset is very interesting because there are a lot less guidance for companies on how to calculate carbon storage if it's for an inset. So, for example, just a very blunt example is the auditing part, which is very well established for the offsets. Like you even have, like we follow the VM42 Vera standard. There's a whole document on how the auditor has to like audit all your results or your calculations and everything, how they have to visit the farms. For the inset, you can claim the exact same thing, a ton of carbon, without any auditor looking at how you made the calculations. So you can see that there's some discrepancy between the two approaches, and you can notice it when you're at the summits and you're talking to someone working on an offset project, and they're gonna start talking about soil sampling, they're gonna start talking about uncertainty calculations, they're gonna start talking about struggling how they measure the biomass, and then you're gonna talk to someone from the insetting who is making a claim that last year we were storing 3,000 tons of carbon in our fields, and you ask them, oh, how did you measure it? And they're like, yes, we partnered with the satellite company and they told us that we stored 3,000 tons of carbon in our soil. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, congratulations. It's, I mean, I'm not saying that these projects are not well intended. I'm sure they are. Just, it's lacking comparability. Like if it's perceived in the same way, if an inset ton of carbon or an offset ton of carbon finds its way into the accounting systems of the company, it seems a bit unfair, or I mean, unfair is not the right word. It's just like
in need of attention.
Yes. But having said this, now there are more and more initiatives who try to equal out the differences. Like there's a Vera Scope 3 program where they're looking at exactly this, and they want to propose auditing for the Scope 3 emission accounting. So I'm very interested in the results of that one. And the companies, I think they're like also the agri-food companies, more and more they're becoming aware that probably they can't continue just claiming whatever climate benefit they just came up with. but that at some point they would have to justify where these calculations come from. And so the farmers also get aware. Like, I think they notice differences in the programs. Like, of course, they're gonna look at the amount of money they can potentially make per hectare and per year. But then they're interested in the seriousness of a program. And what we see with our program, what is very convincing for farmers, is that they get an agronomist on the field, which is unique to other carbon projects. Like, other carbon projects, they would support like via telephone, which is definitely not the same than having someone visiting your farm.
Boots on the ground.
At least twice a year. And this is a value the farmers perceive right away. And I think it's so important, because the actual revenue from the credits, it can take time. Farmers have to be very patient, because until you measured everything and you audited everything and you emitted the first credits, you can be 2 years into the program.
Wow.
So
would starting early with especially the data and the documentation for this would help, and having a platform or even a document basically where you have all these, for example, decisions that you've made. I'm going to go on for like
yes,
a orchard or a forest because I'm in that space. So having all this data for that surface and for those trees where you have the carbon absorption capabilities that you can calculate, and have such a document or in a space to gather this data and work on it as early as possible would absolutely.
Yes, data and documentation is key. And as soon as you have the idea, even a notion of a carbon project, you should start like documenting, even emails. Like, the auditors, they will be interested in something that's called free, prior, and informed consent, which means that everyone, and especially the farmers involved, were aware of what they committed to when they were starting the practices and when they were signing any contract. So if you didn't document that at the moment they're joining your program, they got certain information about the project, about what they can expect, about what kind of revenue they can expect. Like, because with farmers, a lot of things happen orally or on the telephone. Especially like the people who are in contact with the farmers, like agronomists, and it's
familiar with that.
They like to be informal. They like to be in the fields. They like to, yeah.
Handshake agreement.
Yeah, always think of putting down digital proof of any interaction. And if it was a phone call, ask for a summary. If you have a call, put down a summary with the date. If you want, you can even like get a signature that this took place.
Yeah, I
document
hear you.
Everything. Yeah.
The Japanese company I was working for really was strict in this respect, and that's where I learned a lot of the I think it's basically the attitude to have toward compliance, and having a documented relationship. I think is extremely important.
Yes.
I want to segue into this with how important this element was when we were just this past weekend. We were in the orchard of the mentor that I have in the European Institute of Technology EIT food program, Empowering Women in Agri-Food. She has an apple orchard in Romania, and there are several varieties of apples there, and we started our pilot with them. It's an incredible opportunity, which I will share separately. And she mentioned how important it is to have this data coming in somehow, because right now it's being done so much manually and so much traditionally when their teams are coming in. And I just learned the sheer cost of 3 weeks of pruning is around 10,000 euros. in Romania in a traditional orchard. I knew the market was big. I just didn't realize the sheer amount of money and effort it takes. So close, like right there in the orchard, she was telling us about this.
Mm.
And she validated, as you mentioned earlier, how important it would be for her as well as for her fellow farmers in the area, because it's a very apple prone area, popular area. And she said that having that as a farmer, the ability to estimate biomass and subsequently go to estimating biochar and carbon credits and leading to carbon credits and monetizing that would be incredibly valuable for them. So again, I'm proud that through our discussion, you have led me to understand and see these layers that actually help farmers start the process as early on as possible.
Yes.
Because everything is obvious after you know it. So everything is, you can, let's treat this, but instead of treating, we can actually prevent, or at least take the necessary steps to make that a part of the process and bring it to everybody's awareness. So again, it's one of the benefits that I feel that I got from our sessions, and how the conversations that we had, as you said, rippled on through my conversations with my co-founder, the farmers that we're working with, and in everything that we do. I think it's incredibly valuable. And again, I'm super grateful for our conversations. And for our anniversary, I have baked from the apples from the orchard that I went to start our pilot. I baked a batch of cupcakes with apples from the orchard, which I'm sharing with you for our anniversary. I wish I could mail one to you. So for us, cheers to us.
Yes, I would love to have one. They look
I
so
wish I
good.
could. So yeah, again, happy anniversary, Wiebke. And I'm super proud that we have had this this whole relationship bloom so beautifully. And before closing off, if you could share like 3 takeaways from our relationship, from our 3 years, from anything that you want to share.
3 takeaways. The first one, I know we talked about this a lot last year. It's the ripples of impact. I still think of this a lot. Like I'm like, okay, what might this action of mine, or what might this contact, or what might this connection like build elsewhere, without even like things like start to take their own path. I really like this idea of like giving some direction, or giving some inspiration, and then see how it plays out with another person or elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy the theme, I would call it, of the ripples of impact.
Yeah.
Then something very important is the accountability that we talked about. It is something that's not always comfortable. I think I did not mention this. Like it's something
I'm happy you
where
did.
you have this mirror, and you kind of see yourself through the eyes of someone else, and it builds some expectations that you want to live up to. So this is an important source of motivation, but also source of like good drive, just like going into the right direction. And then the third one, friendship. It's like that. It's not like I'm convinced that good relationships are important in personal life just as much as at the workplace. Like if someone likes to work with you, and if you like to work with someone, like this can be a good partnership, and this can be like a fruitful working relationship. If you don't have a good feeling with someone, I also don't think like, or at least you should put a huge warning sign, and like if you really want to make business with that person, if you don't have like also a social connection, because I think then it's a sign that something could be off, or something that there might be some trust lacking on one of the sides. So I think that's something very valuable.
Absolutely. That is you so beautifully put. Wow. I entirely agree, and I'm happy that the motto of the AgriAlly initiative is still resonating. Uh, it's something that I've felt from the moment that I wanted to start this initiative, and I've seen it every time we have our sessions, how it continues to go forward through whatever it is, whatever I do, whatever you do in both our works. And I think you've put it so beautifully. When you put it that way, it's absolutely brilliant, because I've seen how what I wanted to mention fits exactly with what you said. I'm going to start with the last one, friendship. I think one aspect that makes any kind of relationship, whether it's professional or personal, is the ability to have this amount of vulnerability to share with the other person, and trust that they will take that and bring added value to it. It's another aspect I'd like to add is the saying, be curious, not judgmental. And it's one of the elements that has helped us in our relationship, being curious about something, even in however we would have felt at the moment, whether we were tired or concentrated on something else. A lot of life happens, things on our mind. We always were curious, and I really appreciate this, that the space that we made is non-judgmental, and it's what led us to actually open up more and get creative about the approaches that we had on the things that we were bringing in the space. So it's one of the things that I think is very important. And of course, consistency. I've been in agriculture for the past 8 years, agri-tech for the past 8 years, and consistency is definitely something that always pays off. The dedication that you had in the conversations initially, as you said, like, you don't know how your mentor is going to be and so on. When we brought our presence and hey, I'm in this session, I'm dedicating myself to this session so it can be successful, because you can always make more money, but you can never make more time. So I'm proud of the wisdom that we both got out of our conversation.
Thank you so much, Thea.
I can't wait to see where our mentorship path takes us. I think our friendship path takes us now.
Yes.
And looking forward to celebrating with cupcakes next time.
Yes, I have my hot chocolate with cinnamon taste to accompany.
Complimentary. I love that.
Yes.
I love it so much. So yeah, I can't wait to have our next conversation, and to many, many ripples moving forward.
Thank you so much, Thea. It was a pleasure. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening and for your support in amplifying women's voices in agriculture STEM.